Happy Wednesday, guys, and welcome to WagerTalk TV. This is Two and Out, Week 7 of the CFL preview show, found only here on WagerTalk TV with Andrew McInnis and our insider, Rob Braley. We're going to break down some Week 7 games and some big numbers on the board. But before we get there, Andrew, I want to bring you in right off the top before we get into the market mover section. And thank you, Andrew, for picking up the slack last Wednesday for me. Construction crews outside my house dug up our Bell Canada cable lines by accident, knocking out my Wi-Fi and my TV for 4 days, 5 days, I think, before it was up and working. 5 days without Wi-Fi, 5 days without TV. I literally had to talk to my wife, which doesn't normally happen during the week. But Andrew, thanks for picking it up. Really appreciate it. You guys did an excellent job with the Week 6 preview show. And I want to bring you in for a couple quick words, and then we're going to jump right into the market mover because we have an action-packed day today on this show. A lot of games, a lot of breakdowns, Andrew. And how's your week going?
Carm, it's good to see you, man. No worries at all. I know that if you're not making a show, it's because you absolutely cannot, and there's no possible way. So good to see you here, fresh off a good weekend, a winning weekend last week in the CFL. And like you said, a jam-packed show here today. I cannot believe we're going into Week 7 already. It feels like we just started this show yesterday, and here we are going into Week 7. But we've got all our information. We've got a lot of different stuff to go over now. We've got a little bit of bet on and bet against teams. I feel like we're in good positions to start making some money in the CFL.
Yeah, and we are. And I was thinking about the same thing going through my notes this morning. I'm like, we're Week 7 of the CFL season. It feels like it just kicked off a week ago. But when we bring in Rob Braley, we'll talk about it because I'm going to get him to talk about the Toronto Argonauts again. He must hate me by now, but you got to love the Argos, and they're playing his Hamilton Tiger Cats yet again. So I'm looking forward to that one. But let's get into the market mover, Andrew. Um, Tell us what you got, and tell us what you got. Let's go.
Carm, look, this week, there were so many different ways that I could have gone with the market mover, which is exciting. And I want to keep pointing out to people that for the most part, the way these numbers have moved, it hasn't always been a good thing. So don't just always jump all over these opening numbers. Let the dust settle a little bit and make your decision that way. I remember a few weeks ago, we talked about it here on the show. You mentioned it, and Rob, the CLV doesn't always mean anything if you don't get that win, and we've been seeing it all year long. But I want to talk about the BC Lions game and Saskatchewan Roughriders game. We're going to jump into that a little bit more in a few minutes and talk about the players and injuries and such. But we've got BC fresh off a bye. Week 6 bye, I think, is a perfect time for a bye. They've had a lot of success so far this year. They get a chance to take a breather, sit back, watch some film, go through some things, and get ready for their next matchup. And of course, Saskatchewan, they have had a hectic schedule going through a couple wild matches against the Calgary Stampeders, a tough loss for them last week. Now they travel to BC, new quarterback now with Trevor Harris going down. That number opens at 8.5. I have seen as high as 10 and 10.5. We're seeing it flip-flop down to 9.5, back to 10. That, to me, is the market mover of the week. Very interesting to see a team like the Lions fresh off a bye, and I was curious to see how high that number could get. I'll tell you what, if you like the Riders in that game, I would wait until kickoff. If you like the Lions, I'd get on that one sooner than later. Same goes for the over. I think Saskatchewan on the under is probably correlated, although their defense hasn't been that great this season, Carm. So to me, looking at that number, market mover, the BC Lions, their point spread is on the move. So if you like them, I would definitely get in ASAP. For everybody out there watching or listening, that is the market mover this week.
Andrew, I would be completely happy with another BC Lions victory. They've got 4 already this year in 5 games, losing only to the Argos. And I'm holding on to that ticket. BC over 9.5 wins this season. So I'm perfectly happy with another BC win. But that's Andrew McInnis. You can find him on obviously at WagerTalk. He's our number 1 CFL guy. And you can find him on Twitter at McInnis Picks. So give him a follow because he's always tweeting out a lot of in-game stuff as well. Another guy you can find on Twitter is our insider, Rob Braley, at Rob_Braley. And let's bring him in. Rob, welcome to the show again. Thank you for coming on. I am going to see you tomorrow. The Jays and the Padres. You have a box at the game or a suite at the game, and have graciously invited a few of my friends and I to the game. So I look forward to having a drink with you. Welcome to the show. How you doing, Rob?
Morning, guys. I'm a little tired this morning. I was up late last night listening to Andrew on Sports Rage with Morency there. Did a good job covering the CFL. Anyway, other than that, looking forward to another great week in the CFL. Lots of interesting lines this week. Big numbers. Still see the totals low, and after last week, all those 70-point games we had, I'm a little surprised the numbers are that low again. But here we go. We got a chance to make some money, I think.
Yeah, we went from 2 weeks back where there seemed to be a lot of low-scoring games, except for, of course, the McInnis 5%er that easily soared over the total. And then this week we just saw a ton of scoring as well too. So let's see if we can keep that going, Rob. But I want to talk to you about something that, and Andrew is about to touch on it as well too. The Trevor Harris injury. Just talk about the injury. Talk about what the backup quarterbacking position is, and how that might play this week. Do they even have a chance this week?
Well, if I'm going to pat myself on the back here for a sec, if you go back to week 1 or week 2, I think we predicted Trevor Harris was going to get hurt. We predicted the Hamilton Tiger Cats defense was going to get old, and some regression out of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defense. And it seems like all three of those are coming to fruition. So Mason Fines, he's been in Saskatchewan. I think this is his 3rd season. He's had a few starts. He came in last week and played admirably. I think he went 6 for 8 for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not bad. He's still missing this week. Unfortunately, Braden Lewis and Weineke are still out, and those are key components to Saskatchewan's offense. Now, they're going into BC. BC's coming off a bye week, and here's I'm going to give you a couple stats here. This is what he's facing. BC's number 1 defense, in my opinion, and there's a number of categories that they are number 1 in. First of all, 21 sacks leads the league. Points allowed per game, 17. Points allowed off of offense is only 14, because I think they had against Toronto 2 return touchdowns, pick sixes. Trevor Harris is throwing for 1,540 yards. He throws the ball deep well. And they're only giving up, I think, 256 yards per game and an average play of 4.9 yards per game. And Saskatchewan's problem, this is why Harris is injured, is their O-line fails to protect the quarterback. And Matt Betts, leading the league with 9 interceptions, is going to be coming at Mason Fines all day. And Mason Fines is not really a big guy, and he's not really a very mobile quarterback. He's not going to be taken off 7 or 8 times for 60, 70 yards here. He's more of a pocket passer, but he lacks in size. So this will be interesting. Does Saskatchewan have a chance of winning this game? I really don't think so, but I didn't think Winnipeg had a chance either of losing that game. So anyway, I like, if you can get the game under 9 or under 10 points, 9.5, I would take BC for sure in this one.
All right. I'm liking it, Rob. BC, let's get another victory there. Some big numbers. You have to, Rob, you have to admit, when these numbers came out, I think is on Tuesday, when I saw the openers, I said to myself, I don't think I've seen a 15.5 in the CFL in ages. And then you got obviously the lowest number on the board is the Ottawa Red Blacks against the Calgary Stampeders. Any surprises in these numbers, or that they're even this high?
No, I was surprised to see the large numbers, but then again, I mean, when do the Elks get relegated? Look at their schedule coming up. I mean, they got 3 really tough games now. They go to Winnipeg, then they got at BC, then they play Winnipeg again. This is an 0-9 football team. And I think the game opened up at 15 or 15 and a half, and I think it's back down to 15. So, well, I'm not going to say down to 15, but it's still 15. I think the Bombers are going to come out here really, really pissed off from their loss last week and put this game away at halftime. Unfortunately, 15 and a half is too high for me. There's always this, the garbage points, the backdoor cover, but these are big numbers for CFL, and BC now getting 10 points. The Calgary game makes sense, I think, that 5.5. And Hamilton, last time I saw Hamilton as 7.5, 8-point underdog at home, it's been a long time since I've seen that too.
Yeah. And that's the perfect segue for me. You just set that one right up for me. I love it, Rob. The Ticats, they play the Toronto Argonauts, the undefeated Toronto Argonauts, 4-0. Talk to us about this game, Rob. Let's break this down. The Argos offense versus that number 9 defense of and there's only 9 teams in the league. For you guys thinking the 9th ranked team might be good. The last ranked team defensively, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, can they stay within the number? Is there some Ticat pride in Hamilton?
Well, they've won 2 in a row. They're on a roll. Unfortunately, they beat Ottawa and Edmonton, so I don't know what that really means. Butler had a great game last week. I think he ran for 127 yards, but they also gave up 378 yard passing to the Elks, and that number really kind of scares me for Hamilton here. I mean, the game was 37-29. It seemed like an offense, but both of these teams really are not great football teams. And now we're throwing Trevor Powell, who played in Eastern Michigan last year, I believe, 2022 in Eastern Michigan, bounced around NCAA football a little bit. We really don't know a whole lot about him. And what they're going to do, I'll tell you right now, is Toronto's defense is going to shut down Butler. That's their first priority. They're going to play a lot of man-on-man defense, and they're going to force Taylor Powell to beat them in the air, which I really can't see happening. And on the other side of football, the Argos are averaging 40 points per game, 38, 39, something like that. They've only allowed 4 sacks. They're number 1 in net offense, number 1 in average yards per play, number 1 rushing yards per game. But the most important stat, I think, that the Toronto Argonauts hold is their average gain on first down is over 7 yards. That's a great position for Chad Kelly to be in when you're 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3. And then that's how you win CFL football games. And I think it's going to happen here again. I think Toronto's going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to throw the ball. Chad Kelly was outstanding last week, and Moxie made some fantastic catches. What a football game that was. Really enjoyed it. Anyway, Hamilton is also dead last in points allowed, 30.8. Giving up 15 opposing touchdowns, 381 yards against per game, 114 first downs against. Their defense is awful. The Argos have covered their last 8 of 9 versus Eastern opponents, and the over has cashed the last 5 when Toronto was a favorite. So you can see where I'm going with this one. I'll throw my notes away here. I like the Argos in this one. I like the Argos big. I think this is a bad spot for Hamilton, and my favorite bet in this game is, I think it's 28.5 points. It's Toronto's team total. I really like the over on that one.
Yeah, and the weather forecasts are looking good right now. I don't see any rain in the forecast for the weekend at the very least. So we can sort of take that out of the equation. Andrew, I got to bring you in here because I know you're the number 1 guy that if anyone's looking for CFL info, head over to WagerTalk and find you there. But we can't have the insiders report without having you in here. Firing away some questions as well too. So I'll send it over to you.
Well, Rob, obviously different examples with Saskatchewan and then Ottawa with the different quarterbacks going down, different injuries in general, not just the quarterback, position around the league right now. But I find in all kinds of sports, you see a key player go down, or in the NFL, you see a quarterback go down, and you can still make some money betting on that team the next week because the point spread adjusts, and it's baked into the number. But in the CFL, you've seen it on Twitter this week. I've been reading all about it. There seems to be a lot of talk about the drop off on some teams from the QB1 to QB2. Would you agree with that, or do you think there's actually money to be made sometimes betting that team that just lost their quarterback, or are you kind of with the majority here where there is a little bit of a drop off and maybe the books don't realize how big that drop off is from the number one guy to the number two guy?
Yeah, the hardest thing to predict. I mean, Crum came out in Hamilton and he didn't look great, but for the last 3 minutes of that football game last week, he just tore up on the ground Winnipeg's defense. I think he ran for over 100 yards against them, but so his quarterback play wasn't great, but the guy found a way to win. In Saskatchewan, I don't think Trevor Harris. The difference between 1 and 2 is all that great. I mean, Trevor Harris is playing well this year, but he's got 2 very good backups behind him. I think they might be the three as a 3-group unit, probably the strongest one in the league. Shea Patterson's a good player. Mason Fine's a good player. This one in Hamilton, I really the Taylor Powell situation. I really don't have a lot of knowledge. I've never seen him play football, except for like a couple plays last week or whatever. Anyway, it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, if Caleris goes down, I think there's a huge gap there. But a team's a team, and this is team sports. I mean, it's a next man up philosophy on most of these teams. But it's a good point you make. You're almost counting on quarterbacks going down in this league. That's happening so often, right? and you're trying to wager on guys you've never seen before. So it's a tough go.
It is. And like you said, there's that lack of information as well about some of these guys that we might not know about. And it can surprise people. And that's the thing about Crum is that I think people are thinking, wow, this guy, he put on a show in the end of the game. But is that who he is going to be the whole entire game? And that's really the big thing. I wanted to talk just really quickly about the travel spots and just situational betting, because, I find that that's where I do my best handicapping. And, I think I've gone into my, I've started to have success this year over the past 3-4 weeks after struggling for the first week or two of the season, because of these certain situations, right? The teams that are, traveling and, have short weeks, or they're out west for a couple weeks, then they go back east and maybe it's a bet against spot, different things like that. Do you find that now that we're approaching week 7, it's a certain opportunity to be able to bet on or bet against spots like that? I mean, I take a look at Saskatchewan. I'm looking forward to going to watch them next week in my neck of the woods here in the East Coast. And that is the longest one-way flight in Canada you can take, Saskatchewan being in BC, going from BC to Halifax. Saskatchewan, if they have a rough go this week against BC, it's not going to be much better for them next week against Toronto here in Halifax. So are you with me that right now at this point in week 7, it's a good time to start looking at these scheduling spots?
Yeah, for sure. And the CFL's kind of gone to a different format this year. I mean, they're spreading their games out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In previous years, it was like maybe Thursday, a doubleheader, Friday, one game Saturday. So now they've created, in my opinion, more short weeks for teams. And Edmonton's really taking a beating because of it. Saskatchewan is about to go from 3-1 to 3-4, in my opinion. They have a tough scheduling spot. Like you said, traveling all the way to play the Toronto Argonauts. Plus, this week they're in BC. That's two road games. Back-to-back road games is never good in CFL because of the travel.
Rob, you're bringing a ton of information like Ralph Michaels normally does. And I think I want to name you the pen, because I can hear you clicking that pen over and over again. I'm like, where's that noise coming from? It's got to be Rob Braley, our insider. You can find Rob on Twitter, as I mentioned, at Rob_Braley. He's always offering some info, and of course, a lot of great info on this show. Andrew, I want to go right to you on this next segment, our Inside the Numbers. And I mentioned it earlier, when these numbers came up, and we'll see them up on the screen shortly. When these numbers came out, I just looked at these lines and I thought to myself, is the CFL reverting to the days of some really good teams and some very bad teams. And these are the numbers that you see. A 15.5 point spread. That was as of last night for the Blue Bombers against the Edmonton Eskimos, and then as low as 5. So pretty much everything, well, everything is over a field goal, but we have a couple of games, 3 games that are over a TD. Give me your thoughts on inside the numbers.
So, Karma, I made a point this week. It was like, I think 2 a.m, late Monday and or Sunday, I think it was. I wanted to do a screenshot of the opening numbers that I saw to compare it to the current numbers we're seeing live on the show. So what I saw, opening number was minus 16.5 for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We now see them right now as we speak down to minus 14.5. So guys, the Edmonton Elks once again this week, they're getting some love. They are getting some love. I know it's 14.5 points. That's still a lot of points in a football game, but somebody is betting the Edmonton Elks. They went from 16 to 14.5. We're seeing the Argos. They're at minus 7 against the Ticats. Total at that one. Highest one of the week at 49.5. I did see a 50.5 at one point. So looks like a little bit of money coming in on the under in that one. Riders and Lions, we're seeing number at minus 10 right now. As I mentioned, I did see a minus 8.5 earlier, but things have settled in on the minus 10. And the Red Black Stampeders, the game with not too much movement. We saw it open up at minus 4.5, I believe, and now we are sitting at a 5. That is the lowest total on the board this week at 44. So very interesting one here. And as Rob mentioned, some teams like Saskatchewan that started off pretty good, well, they had 2 wins against the Elks. So I think any team that started off their season with 2 games against the Elks in a short span, they're probably feeling pretty happy. But, certain teams right now are going into a better part of their schedule and a worse part of their schedule. But as you mentioned, Carm, sometimes it's nice to open up the odds sheet and say, oh, nice, we have, a bunch of games where the point spreads are minus 3, minus 3.5. Not this week. We got a 14, we got 7s, we got 10s. Some pretty big point spreads here this week, Carm.
Yeah, those are some pretty big numbers. I'm going to throw another number at you guys. $99. The rest of July for $99 over at WagerTalk. Every single play Andrew McInnis releases, every single play I release, and any other capper at WagerTalk, you can get their plays for only $99 for the rest of July. It's a great deal, and you see it up there. Just head over to WagerTalk and take advantage of that deal. Extra point, Andrew. You can't have a CFL preview show without an extra point. It's like the TD is bringing in Rob. Rob gives us the TD. You give us the extra point. Take it away, Andrew.
Carm, we are going to the first game of the week here, the Edmonton Elks and Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I'm going to look at the over, but I'm going to isolate the first half at 23. Rob talked about it, and he absolutely nailed it this year on the show as far as Winnipeg's defense. I've been saying it as well. Their offense is still great. They're getting Kenny Lawler back, which should help them even more. But their defense has struggled, allowing points every single week. And of course, not even an ATS loss, a straight up loss last week to Ottawa with a late fourth quarter blown lead. They're taking on the Edmonton Elks here. Edmonton, look, I've been saying this as well. Their offense has been up and down, coming off a game, though, where they put up a ton of points against the Hamilton Tirecats, 29 points. And I know Hamilton's defense is bad, but they've proven they can move the chains and find the end zone. The problem is everybody scores on their defense. I feel like to open up the CFL week, we are going to see fireworks in the first half, especially. I worry that Winnipeg might run the ball out in the second half, which is why I'm isolating this first half. But you've got an angry Winnipeg team, but also Winnipeg team giving up points, and Edmonton should capitalize on that. If Edmonton even gives me 7 or 10 points, I believe this one goes up and over 23. I'll take that one. First game of the week here. Best bet for the show on 2 and Out.
Andrew, I love that play. I'm going to be on that play as well, too. So thank you. And thank Rob Braley as well, too, for coming on yet again on the Insiders Report. A lot of action today, a lot of actionable info as well too, starting with Andrew's market mover on the Saskatchewan BC game, talking about the injuries, talking about that Argo game that Rob broke down. There's some plays within what he said there. So take them, guys. There's money to be made on this show. These guys have been doing this all year long. They're making money. There's no reason why you shouldn't. Find Andrew McInnis, our number one guy in CFL, over at Wager Talk and on Twitter at McInnis Picks. And then, of course, Rob is at Rob_Braley. And myself at Carmine Bianco WT, all on Twitter. Give us all a follow. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Wednesday with week 8 of the CFL 2 and Out preview show.